Alrighty.
Can you state your name and profession for the recording, please?
My name is Lucinda Board,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a registered nurse at Marietta Memorial Hospital.
Cool beans. How long have you lived in this area for?
I was born in this area in 1962, so I've been, I'm 62 years old. I did move away for about 3 years and lived in Columbus, but otherwise I've been in this area.
All right. When did you first hear about C8?
I would have heard about it. I'm sorry that I can't remember the year.
Oh, no, you're fine.
But it was when all that came about. I actually probably was notified through the mail. I know I got a lot of mailings because they must have looked at, I think, school records. They knew that where you had gone to school, and I had gone to school in Belpre. So I was part of the mailing, I think. And of course, at that time, it was very much on the TV. Lots of lawyers on the TV. And my dad actually worked at DuPont.
Oh, wow.
So I had several connections, but I would think the mail would be the first indication that I had that they were concerned.
What did your father do at DuPont?
He was in construction.
Okay, cool.
Yes. And he had worked there his whole life, 40 some years. So he was right in the midst of it.
Did he have any health complications?
He did not. I think all of his were age-related complications. And just on a note that I thought might be interesting to you, like a different side of things.
Yeah.
My dad was totally against anything with the C8 program. He would not participate.
Oh.
And his reasoning was he had worked at DuPont. They had provided a good living for him, a good job, and he wasn't interested in taking them down.
So he trusted them.
I don't know that he trusted them. He just was loyal to them. Let's say that.
Like, did he believe that they did pollute the water?
I'm not sure that he ever talked to me about whether he thought that or not. But if you talk to him later in life, they didn't have, when he was younger, all the safety things in place. I mean, he said they worked around asbestos for years with no mask on. They just didn't know. You know, at least he didn't think they knew. Yeah, but I thought that was an interesting take on that, because he didn't keep us from it. The rest of his family participated, but not him.
Do you have any personal experience with C8? I heard that your mother might have been affected.
You know what, we don't, it's one of those things where we don't know, but that was one of the things, and she got colitis at a very young age, and actually had to have her whole large bowel removed. And they kind of thought there was a possibility. She wasn't raised in that area, but she was there from age 20 on.
So like cancers and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have any cancer. My family has a lot of autoimmune disease. I have a sister that got it very young, she had to take chemotherapy, but it was considered autoimmune, not cancer. But I've never had any health problems, so.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Can you describe your experience with the C8 monitoring program?
I was thinking this morning before you got here, Kira, I know that I had lab work drawn several times, but I don't know how frequently that it was done. But once again, I would get through the mail. So initially it was if I'm remembering right, a pretty big process of, not an application, but pages of my health history and where I had been exposed to it, that type thing. And then I know we had lab work every so many months for a while.
Did you get paid?
Personally, I think I did get paid.
Yeah, they were.
I would have forgotten that, but I think I did. You're right.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I think you're right, I did. And I had a lot of friends that were nurses that actually quit their jobs. It was that big of a thing, but they quit their hospital job to go work in that, to draw the blood work and to do the applications, and it was a short-term job, but like a couple years. Yeah, so I always thought that was interesting that they would quit and sit for hours, 8 hours a day, every day of the week, interviewing people, taking applications. So it must have been a big process.
Did you know that DuPont was responsible for the C8 at the time? Like, was it?
I knew they were being blamed for it. Yeah, I'm going to say yes. I mean, yeah.
Before C8 pollution, how would you describe your trust in DuPont's environmental practices? Like, do you believe they were responsible with disposal, or?
I mean, as a kid, I probably didn't. I probably didn't know. Now, I've heard my dad talk in later years as he was older that he could look back and know. I've actually heard him say there was just white snow coming out of every building we tore down of asbestos. But at that time, he said we didn't know it was harmful. You know what I mean? Now, maybe somebody did, but it wasn't something that he knew about. Now, in later years, they had to wear protection. But he talked more about that than the C8, the asbestos.
Because I know that, like, back when this all started, the EPA didn't regulate them. The companies would regulate themselves. DuPont would say C8 isn't bad, even though they knew it was. So.
Yeah, in that regard, I didn't know anything about, like, you're talking about, like, their disposal and all that. I wouldn't have been aware of any of that.
Okay.
Now, maybe my dad was, but I wasn't.
Would you say you trust DuPont now?
I guess I don't think about it that much. Here's something. I hope I'm not like tangenting off too badly.
I like it.
When I told you I left town, I worked at Children's Hospital in Columbus, and at that time that was before computers, Carrie. You know, everything was on paper. But I can remember we had a great big map on our unit, and I did work on surgical ICU, which was all GI, bowel, you know, all that. And we put little stick pins where our children came from. This area was huge.
There's a lot of people.
A lot of people from this area with that. But I guess I was always raised knowing that DuPont's not the only plant. You know, my upbringing was everybody's dad worked at a plant. It was just the way it was. Nobody's dad worked anywhere else. So I guess as an adult, I can look back and think we're in an area that's high, but at the time, I'm not sure that I worried about it. And now if you're asking me if I trust them, I don't, I'll be honest, I don't even think about it. I just figure it's my choice to live here.
You say those children patients that were being affected?
That was all Children's Hospital. Yeah. So in regards to, I don't know that it was C8, but this area is full of cancer. I guess is what I was saying at that time. It shocked me, and I remember thinking, well, we just live in an area that we take a risk living here.
Do you think there should be stricter testing on waste disposal in this area from big companies and plants?
I'm going to say yes to that. I think it should be. Yeah.
Do you believe this problem can be fixed at all? Like, people who are infected, do you think there's a way to help them?
With the C8?
Yeah. Or do you think it's a lost cause?
I'm thinking it's probably a little bit late at this point. Now, what's funny to me, Kira, is like everyone in my family, I have 3 sisters, and my mom participated in it. And like, I have no problems. And I have sisters and a mom that was sick with it. I have 2 sisters, no problems. But we were raised in the same, and we were inundated with it because we had well water. We didn't have city water where I lived out there at the time. So we were raised on well water. And what they did, and this is where I don't want to tangent off, during that process, they actually had, I told your mom, they had to bring in DuPont was required to bring in this great big, it was huge, a big green tank that they put in everyone's home that had well water, because that well water then had to be filtered before it could be used in the home. But the concern was out where they lived and where I grew up, lots of garden. So I know they came intermittently for a long time and tested soil. Because what we were eating was coming from the ground, regardless of what was filtered coming into the house. So, and then Belpre Schools, I know, was part of all that. So I just grew up with, if it was there, I got it. But I didn't have any health problems from it, to my knowledge.
It's
So it's odd to me how some people could have been affected and
Mhm.
other people were not.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like in everything, like
It's
tomatoes you grow.
That's what I'm saying. I grew up, if it was there,
Mhm.
I was exposed to it.
Mhm.
Through food, through water, everything.
Mhm. Do you think there's
So.
anything? Do you think there's anything like someone in the community can do to keep themselves safe from this problem? Like, what would someone do? Or is it there's nothing to do?
See, I'm kind of like, when I talk about I'm not worried about the plant,
Mhm.
I guess I just live my life thinking we're all at risk somewhere.
Yeah.
I feel more at risk here at the hospital than I would drinking the water at home. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
You know, we all have exposure to something, so I'm going to say I don't really worry about it.
Do you think this C8 issue has any lasting environmental effects? And like
Environmental.
Like, I mean, that can refer to people too.
If it's taken care of, right, we shouldn't have any additional. But like if I mention my mom, and if that's what happened to her, the doctors will never, they said there's no way to know. It's been her whole life, you know, the last 30 years of her life. So, and whether it's spread then to children of those of us who were exposed, I guess it could be long lasting.
And
if it's fixed.
What about social effects? Do you think there's any problems like socially? How people
Socially, now I'm going to go back to my dad.
Yes.
He felt that this whole situation, right or wrong, on DuPont's part, financially or socially, devastated a big employer in this area. And I'm sure it has. I mean, I think it was bought out. I don't know.
Yeah,
DuPont's probably no more.
Yeah, it's been
Renamed. Yeah.
What is it now? Morris.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's called.
Yeah, where at one time there was probably thousands of employees over there, and now there's not. So he always hated that if it wasn't accurate. That's, you know, I'll just be real honest. You know, he looked at it as a lawyer thing, like that the lawyers got a hold of it and took him down. That's how he looked at it. I don't know that I looked at it that way, but I think socially it probably took a huge employer out of our area.
So there's like people that are Team DuPont and then people who are against it.
I imagine there are. There are.
That's insightful. What steps could be taken to prevent future environmental contamination, do you believe?
I suppose I would look at, like you said earlier, people are responsible for their own. I think, I hate to say this, but probably someone else needs to be responsible for it. Because I'm sure they, big places just like where I work or at DuPont, they get by with things that we probably shouldn't be doing. And yet I hate to think of that second party dictating everything that we do. So I think that's the only way it would be able to do it, though, is for someone outside the facility to do it.
All right. These are some more like nurse, like medical centered
Okay.
questions now. What does C8 do to a body? What do you believe it does?
You know, at one time I probably knew more. What I remember about it was there was a certain list of problems that seemed to be very common among the C8 population. But I'm not sure that I even remember what those were at this point. But I guess my focus was on certain diseases and things. I'll get that real quick.
Okay. Do you see any patients who have been affected by C8? Like
I
guess
don't
you
even
answered.
see it on records anymore.
Oh.
We used to. You would see C8 exposure or that type thing, but I never really even see it anymore. I'm not sure that's even asked anymore by physicians.
Okay. Do you think there's any way to fix the body after being polluted by C8? Like any way to get it out or anything?
I don't think so. I imagine the damage has been caused.
And do you think there's anything we can do to stay safe from C8?
I guess the only thing you could do is drink water that you buy, but we don't know what's in that either, I guess. And you know something, when you talked about the two sides of the battle, Kiera, that just came to my mind when you said that. What we found unfortunate, as you know, watching, it was big. It was on the news every night. It was in the papers. That's what I mean, like physicians were saying, were you exposed to CA? You know, it was a part of our world probably several years. But yet the same people you would see on the news, I'm going to sound really judgmental here, you know, standing there smoking a cigarette while they're suing DuPont for C8 exposure. That's tough. That's tough to take. So I do think there were sides on that, when yes, there's things we can do to avoid getting sick, but I think our world is so exposed to things, it's hard to pick out which one is taking us down.
Yeah.
And I think that's where your sides came from. Like, well, that's great, but if you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and then you've got a lawyer suing, getting you money because DuPont. That's where a lot of the DuPont people, I think, came from.
Yeah.
How are we being blamed for this when you don't have good health habits as it is? So
it's like, might as well just throw more stuff on the pile. Like,
that was your battle between people thinking it was lawyers. You know, why aren't they suing the the cigarette company?
Yeah, true.
So yeah, it was a battle for a while. It really was. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting.
That's the end of the interview. So.
Well, thank you.